All right, here is some help with 1.2, section 1.2, Introduction to Fractions and Mixed Numbers. Again, I've got this formula sheet with the first 10 prime numbers open on another tab while I'm doing my work. And I have a 20 by 20 multiplication table. So those are my two tools that I use all the way through Unit 1. All right, write a fraction that represents the parts shaded red, indicated by R in the figure shown below. So a fraction is always a part over a whole. And so we need to know how many parts are red out of how many are there altogether. That'll be the denominator, the whole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And you notice if I hold my mouse over it, it says wedge 8 and wedge 9. So there's 8 shaded out of 9 total. So how to enter this in here, this is already given to you as a fraction. So you just type your 8 over your 9. I think this is fairly simple. And I may skip through to find some that you might have more trouble with. This is going to be 3 out of 4. I'm going to skip that. A fraction is in lowest terms if the numerator and denominator have no common factor other than 1. That means they're relatively prime. There's no other factors like 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 that go into both the numerator and denominator. That tells you it is in lowest terms. If you have 17 and you spent 15 on movie tickets, what fraction did you spend? So you want spend over total that you had. So how much did you spend? That's 15. And how much did you start with? How much total did you have? That's 17. And you need to take a moment to think to yourself, do I need to reduce that fraction? So I'm going to talk more later about this one is not reducible because 15 and 17 don't have any common factors. We'll talk later about how to determine if they don't have any common factors, and if they do, what they are, and cancel them and write it in lowest terms. We will get to that. All right, reduce. All right, so here is an example of when you need to write this in lowest terms. So I need to factor my numerator and factor my denominator. So what I'm going to do is 2 is prime, so I'm going to leave my numerator as 2 times 1. And my denominator is 22, which I know from the last section. I know how to do a prime factorization. It's 2 times 11. So I'm going to rewrite my denominator as 2 times 11. And now you notice that you have a 2 on the top and a 2 on the bottom. Well, 2 divided by 2 is just 1. So they cancel out and become 1s. So now my numerator is 1 times 1, and my denominator is 1 times 11. So that's going to be my answer. See if it will let me do that. All right, I need to write it as a fraction, so I'm going to use my fraction bar on my computer screen to create a fraction. There's 2 ways to do it. I can do my keypad and create a fraction like that, or I can just hit my division bar on my, screen. Okay, that won't let me do it. I have a different computer screen than you guys. There we go. If I hit my division bar, which on my screen is down next to the shift bar, I'm not on my screen, on my keyboard, it will create a fraction or take that fraction away. It'll toggle back and forth. So I decided that this was 1 over 11 when I reduced it. So again, you want to factor, and then you want to cancel common factors, and then you want to rewrite it as the reduced fraction. Here we need to change it into a mixed number, and so what I do for that is I think of it as a backwards C. First thing is, if there's a 4 in the denominator here, there's going to be a 4 in the denominator here. And the numerator is going to be 4 times 6 plus 3. 4 times 6 plus 3. Well, that's 24 plus 3 is 27. So that's my numerator. And I do need to take a second and see if I can reduce that, but I cannot. So I'm going to enter it as I found it, 27 over 4. All right, reduce this to lowest terms. So again, I'm going to want to factor 29 and 38 to check. Well, if I look at my first 10 prime numbers, it goes up to 29. So 29 is prime. If I need to, so I'm going to write that as 29 times 1 in the numerator and find 38 on your multiplication table, and you can see that it is 2 times 19. And use your your prime factorization, your goodness gracious, your formula sheet. See that 19 is prime, so everything here is prime and everything here is prime. 1 is not prime. It's neither prime nor composite. And nothing will cancel. So there's not, so 29 over 38 is already in lowest terms. All right, so if I go back to here, I'm going to type in my fraction bar to get a fraction or use that keypad, and I'm going to leave it as 29 over 38. I'm going to turn off my email program so my emails don't pop up and distract us anymore. All right, so next. Now I need to change. I can see that this is improper because 36 is bigger than 25. So I need to know how many times does 25 go into 36. So I am doing this. Long division, everybody's favorite. Well, how many complete times does 25 go into 36? Hopefully you guys can see that 125 is 25, 2 25s is 50. So that would be too many. So it only goes in 1 complete time. So my 1 goes there. Now I multiply 1 times 25 and I write it down here and I subtract it from 36. When I subtract, I get 11, and that's my remainder. That's my numerator. Because if my denominator started as a 25, it's going to stay as a 25. So when you do your long division to write a number as a mixed number, this is your whole number. That is an L and an E. This is your denominator because that's what it was in the original fraction. And then this is your numerator. And then we do need to think about that fraction part and make sure we can't reduce it. And in this case, we cannot because 11 is prime and it does not go into 25. So 1 and 11/25 should be the answer to this one. All right, now we need to change it to improper. Here is a great example of something that this software will do often. And if you get used to noticing it, your life will be a lot easier. Because as you know, we can't use a calculator for Unit 1. So we need our numbers to stay as small as possible. And if you look at 8/20ths and recognize that at least 2 goes into both those numbers and maybe a bigger number, that can be reduced. So let's reduce it before we turn it into a mixed number. They say change it and then reduce it. I'm going to say, hey, let's reduce first and keep our numbers smaller so it's easier. And you can't always reduce, but you should take a moment to look at it. So let's write 8. The prime factorization of 8 is, and once you start doing a lot of prime factorizations, you're going to start remembering that 8 is 3 2s multiplied by each other, not 3 times 2. All right, so I'm going to rewrite my 8 as 2 times 2 times 2. And my 20 is 2 times 10, 5 times 2. Sorry, this is messy. So there's 2 times 5 times 2. So I can cancel 1 pair of 2's and a second pair of 2's. And I am just left with 2 over 5. So 8 over 20 reduces to 2 over 5. So really I'm starting with this. And I'm changing that to improper. So again, I'm going to do that backwards C. I started with a 5 in the bottom, so I'm going to write the 5 in the bottom here. And my numerator is going to be 5 times 2, which is 10, plus 2, which is 12. So it's going to be 12 over 5. see if we can give a fraction here, 12 divided by 5. And I'm going fast here, but you have the ability to stop, pause, rewind, look at it again. I just don't want these videos to be too long. All right, change it to improper. So again, you're going to do your backwards C. You're going to do 27 times 5 plus 17. And now it's doing that thing again where it won't let me go to, let me pause it. All right, I'm trying to get this to work. This time it's going to work. Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go do my backwards C. And yes, it's going to be ugly. I know my denominator is 27. I got to do 27 times 5 plus 17. So 27 times 5 is not on my 20 by 20 multiplication table, but 5 times 7 is. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So it's 135, but don't forget I still have to add my 17. Now, a lot of people want to just write plus 17 down here, which is a shortcut, and I won't, see it. So you can do that if you want. But technically that's not correct because you've said that then when you do this addition and you get your answer down here, you've said that 27 times 5 is this guy, which is not correct. So I'm just pointing it out. You're doing two separate operations. So 7 plus 5 is 12. 3 plus 1 is 5. And 1 plus nothing is 1. So it's going to be 152 over 27. That's kind of big and ugly, and there is a chance that it will reduce. I need to check on that. So 27, you look on your chart, 9 times 3, 3 is prime. 9 is 3 times 3. Again, I know I'm going fast. You will get better at this. You'll get fast at this as you do more practice. But there's 3 3s on the bottom of this fraction. So the only way it will reduce is if 3 goes into 152. And because of the very end of section 1.1, I believe is where it is, there's a chart about divisibility rules. And that's very important when you can't use a calculator. The ability to tell immediately whether 3 goes into a number or not. And the rule for that is to add up the digits of that number. So I'm looking at 1 plus 5 plus 2. 6 plus 2 is 8. And if 3 goes into this number, then 3 does go into that number. And I would need to do some long division. However, since 3 does not go into 8, 3 does not go into 152, so I can stop right there and know that this is in lowest terms. So let me go back and enter 152 over 27. And again, I know I'm going fast. Stop and rewind all you want. All right, this is going to be a long division problem. I need to do 13 into 130. Fortunately, that's pretty easy because 13 times 10 is 130. And I'm going to get nothing. So it's going to go in exactly 10 times. So I don't know what they want with this. So let's go back and see. Okay, it says if your answer is a whole number, which it is, enter it in the leftmost box and leave the numerator and denominator boxes blank. So that's what they want us to do. Reduce this fraction. Okay, this is another one where you're going to want to factor. So 25, remember, first step is to factor, and the second step is to cancel common factors. And the third step is to multiply anything you have left to get your numerator and denominator. So 25 is 5 times 5. 40, those are both prime, that's where I stopped. 40 is 4 times 10. Neither one of those is prime, so I got to keep going. 4 is 2 times 2, they're both prime. 10 is 2 times 5, they're both prime. So 40 is 3 2s and a 5. Now, what can I cancel? Well, one pair of 5s. So 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once, and there's nothing else I can cancel. All I have on the top is